marked the worst January for job layoffs since 2009, according to a new report. So, according to outplacement firm Challenger Gray and Christmas, U.S. based employers announced more than 108,000 job cuts in January, marking an increase of 118% from the cuts announced the same time last year. Roughly 40% of last month's layoffs can be attributed solely to Amazon and UPS. The companies cut 16,000 and 30,000 jobs, respectively. The UPS cuts were tied to its ongoing wind down of its delivery arrangement with Amazon. Ted Rossman joins us now. He's a principal analyst at personal finance website Bankrate. So, what are the biggest reasons for these cuts?
Well, there are a few things going on here. There's a lot of uncertainty that's been interjected into the market really ever since tariffs were announced last April. We haven't totally recovered from some of that shock to the economy. Businesses are in kind of wait and see mode. The artificial intelligence boom is also leading to some layoffs. I mean, in some respects, it's good that people are more productive. It's just not as good that people are losing jobs or not being hired as a result. Some of the sectors that have been most affected include technology, transportation, and healthcare.
Let's talk more about the industries and why they're seeing the biggest cuts.
Yeah, healthcare is an interesting one because that's actually also one of the areas where we're seeing the most hiring. So that's a little bit weird. We're seeing a lot of hiring and firing. There's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions and kind of shakeouts in the healthcare sector. We're generally upbeat about the future of healthcare. We have an aging population. We have a great need for healthcare workers. So that one's not as much of a concern. I would say also that in the long run, we're pretty upbeat about things like technology and transportation as well, just because we continue to live in an ever more so tech savvy culture. Transportation, I mean, you talk about e-commerce and just how important that is. So some of this may be kind of temporary noise as there's a bit of a recalibration. We've had a weird few years in the economy, really ever going back to the pandemic. And then afterwards, we had that whole great resignation thing, and everybody was switching jobs. And we're still settling back to some form of normal.
Yeah, so as he was just detailing, we're trying to get to, what this new normal is with, AI coming in the fold. Of course, there's tariffs on goods imports and a lot of it is just, some people, they need to show up their, well, not people, but some businesses just need to show up their profits, and wages is one of the biggest things that cost companies. So, loss of contracts, the economy, reconstructing, merging, closing of some businesses, AI, cost cutting, all of these things are going to be reasons why companies look to cut employees. So we definitely have to, prepare ourselves and just always make sure that you're prepared because anything can happen, and anything, will happen. So, it's just one of those things where I feel like it's going to be a time period of layoffs, and it's going to be a time period or a boom of hiring once these companies kind of figure out where they're going and stuff like that. Um, a lot of these things up here, like demand loss, so it's always going to be, a new business or someone that just comes onto the scene and takes demand away from certain products. I was um looking at or doing a reaction video to where software as a service companies are starting to see a decline in demand for their programs and services. So, you know, um, it's a lot of things that can attribute to layoffs, and the job market is going to be forever changing. And right now, I just feel like a lot of these businesses are just trying to get themselves prepared for the future, whatever that future may be. And it's just really hard to see what the end goal is or what their plan is, but eventually, these companies do come back around and just start hiring again. And again, you just want to make sure you have some type of skill, or you're approaching some type of profession that won't be easily affected so much by AI. More so, you can use AI to work with AI and things like that, because the AI technology is going to continue to get better and better. I say that a lot in my videos because that's just they're working to get this AI to the point to where you can tell it to do a task and it's going to do it quickly, effortlessly, and it's not going to cost them as much as it would to have, someone with a higher education, or, maybe even just a high school diploma or GED, in that position to do that job. So, just have to prepare for how it is in the future. There's, there's always been things that come in and disrupt industries and stuff like that. And then, people just have to be resilient and find a way to adapt to these changes.
Care.
Let's talk more about the industries and why they're seeing the biggest cuts.
Yeah, healthcare is an interesting one because that's actually also one of the areas where we're seeing the most hiring. So that's a little bit weird. We're seeing a lot of hiring economy settling back to some.
Is going into for the rest of the year.
The job market has been weakening, but back to that point about normalization, in some respects, it's really just back where it was in, say, 2019 or early 2020. We saw record levels of job openings the past several years, and especially in 21, 22, a ton of people were job hopping. So even though vacancies are down, they're still at or even slightly above where they were back pre-pandemic. The unemployment rate right now is 4.4%. That's about a point higher than its recent low a couple of years ago, but it's still pretty low in the historical context. I get the sense from Federal Reserve officials and other policymakers that yes, there's been some weakening in the job market, but they feel like it's reaching kind of a plateau, that it hopefully won't get much worse from here. Things could be stabilizing. So it's not the best, but it's far from the worst.
Okay, Ted Rossman, thank you.
And hopefully, those outlooks are true, and hopefully, it's just a time period of where, companies are just trying to get themselves together, but they'll go back to hiring and making sure, jobs are available out here. So we'll see. I'm going to close this one out. If you like my content, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. This is Justin Paul. Peace.